Welcome back to Narrative Network. You won't believe how one mother turned heartbreak into the biggest comeback of her life. Years ago, she and her sons were thrown out of a high-end restaurant for no good reason, leaving them humiliated and heartbroken. But instead of giving up, she fought back, and years later, she returned to that same restaurant as the new owner. How did she pull off such an incredible transformation? Stick around to find out every twist and turn in her journey. And don't forget to hit like, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more amazing stories like this. Tanya Maxwell never imagined a routine outing with her young twin sons would forever reshape her life. One bright Saturday morning, she confidently stepped into Le Papillon, an upscale restaurant on the city's posh Broadway Avenue. She had saved for weeks to afford this treat, dressing her boys in neat collared shirts, yet a frosty reception greeted them. A tall maitre d' swiftly blocked their path, declaring the establishment fully booked. Tanya presented her reservation confirmation, but he ignored it, insisting they leave. The polite facade barely concealed blatant bias. With her sons clutching her hands, Tanya left, heart heavy. Humiliated and furious, Tanya wrestled with questions that had no easy answers. Why did he treat us like that? Will my sons learn to fear such encounters? Although outraged, she maintained composure for her children's sake. That night, as she tucked them into bed, her younger boy, Noah, asked, "Mama, are we not allowed in fancy places?" Holding back tears, Tanya reassured them it wasn't their fault. Still, the sting of prejudice lingered. She resolved not to let this injustice go unchallenged. Determined, she sought advice from community organizations, but found few who would tackle a private business's discriminatory practices. Over the following weeks, Tanya wrote letters to Le Papillon's management, local news outlets, and even municipal representatives. She detailed her experience of being refused service, urging them to investigate. Responses were dismissive at best or non-existent at worst. Feeling powerless, Tanya comforted her sons by focusing on positivity and reminding them they belonged anywhere. Secretly, she vowed one day to exact change in a more meaningful way. Bills still had to be paid, so she picked up extra shifts at a humble catering company. There, she found renewed purpose in the kitchen, a hidden passion she hadn't yet explored. That catering job became Tanya's refuge. She arrived before dawn, prepping vegetables, marinating meat, and perfecting sauces. Immersing herself in culinary creativity soothed her anger. Ironically, her life now revolved around food, spurred by the very discrimination she faced at a high-end establishment. One of the lead caterers, Chef Morales, recognized her talent. He taught her advanced techniques, patiently guiding her through plating presentations and flavor pairings. Tanya's confidence grew as she realized she excelled under pressure. After grueling days, she returned home physically drained yet mentally charged. Often, she scribbled recipe ideas into a worn notebook, dreaming of bigger possibilities. Months turned into a year. Tanya's skills soared, and she began to see the catering company as more than just a job. She thrived on the satisfaction of feeding others, noticing how good food bridged divides. Sometimes, she caught herself fantasizing about owning a restaurant, one where no one would ever be turned away. The memory of Le Papillon's rejection still fueled her determination. Late-night talks with her sons about their future gave her hope. Though her bank account remained modest, Tanya started setting aside small savings. She read books on business, restaurant operations, and success stories of minority entrepreneurs. Eventually, Chef Morales offered Tanya a chance to develop her own themed menu for a private event. She nervously crafted dishes blending Southern comfort with subtle European influences. The event was a triumph. Guests raved about her sweet yet spicy gumbo, cornbread with rosemary, and delicate eclairs with bourbon-infused cream. word traveled fast. Soon, people requested Tanya personally for their high-profile functions. Impressed by her professionalism, Chef Morales raised her position. With more experience came new insights into sourcing quality produce, negotiating supplier costs, and building a trusted culinary team. Slowly, Tanya felt an invisible weight lifting, replaced by blossoming confidence. Meanwhile, her sons thrived too, motivated by her example of perseverance. They aced their studies, each dreaming of future careers, one aimed at engineering, the other at journalism. Tanya always encouraged them to pursue their passions, vowing they'd never feel shut out from anywhere. Privately, she still grappled with the pain of that fateful day at Le Papillon. However, a single mom of two had only so much time. Bills, groceries, and rent demanded focus. Her involvement in activism dimmed as she poured energy into forging a better life. Yet the seed remained. One day, she wanted her own restaurant. Tanya spent her evenings devouring online tutorials on restaurant management, gleaning tips on marketing, budgeting, and brand building. She realized how essential a strong concept was, something that told a story. Drawing on her roots, she developed an idea for a soulful fusion bistro, combining American Southern staples with upscale presentation. When not cooking, she brainstormed names and logos, showing sketches to her boys. They giggled at some of her early attempts, but eventually fell in love with the concept of soul and spice. This was more than a dream. It was a statement that flavor and acceptance could coexist harmoniously. It took 2 full years of hustle before Tanya finally saved enough to lease a small storefront on the edge of downtown. Far from prime real estate, it was all she could afford. Still, stepping inside that empty space felt like crossing a threshold. Her sons helped paint walls, assemble tables, and source secondhand kitchen equipment. Local artists donated murals celebrating unity and cultural diversity. Night after night, Tanya tested recipes in the cramped kitchen. She hired a handful of staff, people who believed in her vision. Though fear lurked, her excitement soared. Soul and Spice was about to be born. Opening day arrived with a flurry of last-minute chaos. A missing produce delivery, signage that fell off the wall, and a waitress who called in sick. Nevertheless, Tanya pressed on. By late afternoon, curious locals trickled in, lured by the tempting aroma of gumbo and cornbread wafting through the door. Tanya personally greeted each table, ensuring everyone felt valued. Her battered notebooks came to life in every dish. Collard greens spiced with paprika, pot roast braised with the hint of French wine. Customers praised the homey atmosphere and heartfelt service. Through exhaustion, Tanya felt triumphant. Her own restaurant was real. Week by week, Soul and Spice gained momentum. Neighbors recommended it to friends. A local food blogger posted glowing feedback. Tanya juggled cooking, bookkeeping, and staff management, discovering how exhilarating and terrifying entrepreneurship could be. She strove to ensure prices remained fair, recalling how financial barriers often excluded entire communities from fine dining. Meanwhile, she insisted on top-notch quality. Her staff admired her dedication, especially after witnessing her mop floors or scrub pans late at night. The small profits she earned went straight back into improvements. Bit by bit, her bold vision of inclusive, delicious dining found a steady foothold. Then, unexpectedly, a newspaper food critic visited. Flustered, Tanya served him without flashy showmanship, simply presenting her best cooking. Days later, a headline read, "Soul and Spice brings heart to city's dining scene." The review highlighted Tanya's story, her perseverance, her creative fusions, and her unwavering belief in equal treatment. Customers poured in. Lines formed outside. The slow nights became a memory. Ambitious investors knocked on her door, curious about expansion. Though flattered, Tanya refused to compromise her mission. She began teaching her staff about her experiences, ensuring no one would ever endure humiliation here. Soul & Spice now bustled with purpose. 2 years after Soul & Spice opened, Tanya found herself running a thriving establishment. Her sons, nearing high school graduation, helped out on weekends. Observing the restaurant's success, she decided to open a second location across town. The deal finalized smoothly, and public interest soared. She was living her dream, yet an old wound never fully healed. Every time she saw an upscale eatery, she remembered Le Papillon. One summer evening, a fortuitous call arrived. A broker representing an undisclosed seller wanted to meet, claiming an extraordinary opportunity. Tanya almost dismissed it, until he mentioned the fabled name, Le Papillon. Stunned, Tanya arranged a preliminary viewing. The once intimidating facade appeared slightly dated now, still grand but bearing the weight of time. She learned the current owners had struggled financially, seeking a visionary buyer to revive the space. Memories flooded her mind. That humiliating day, the twins' confused faces, her own burning shame. Part of her wanted to reject the idea, but curiosity prodded her forward. Touring the ornate dining hall, she pictured her gumbo simmering on those stoves, families of all colors, welcomed by gracious hosts. Fear gnawed at her finances, yet the symbolic power of acquiring Le Papillon was undeniable. Negotiations proved complicated. The asking price dwarfed any sum Tanya had previously managed. She consulted mentors, bankers, and even Chef Morales, who cheered her on. A local bank, impressed by her track record, agreed to partially finance the acquisition. Meanwhile, the broker insisted the sellers might accept a gradual buyout if she met certain performance benchmarks. Tanya hesitated, aware that if she failed, everything, Soul & Spice, her savings, her reputation, could crumble. Yet the potential to reclaim Le Papillon, transforming it into a place of acceptance, beckoned irresistibly. After many sleepless nights, she signed the agreement, stepping once more into unknown territory. On a chilly morning, Tanya stood before Le Papillon, keys in hand. She remembered that same threshold where she'd been barred from entering. Now, it belonged to her. Emotions churned: vindication, pride, and a ghost of anger at the prejudice once suffered. Determined to keep the restaurant's renowned name yet revitalize its spirit, she began sweeping changes. Some staff members had grown jaded under previous mismanagement. Others were eager for fresh leadership. Tanya set clear expectations, a welcoming environment for everyone. She introduced dishes inspired by Soul & Spice, peppering the classic French menu with robust flavors and down-home warmth. Public reaction was electric. News that the beloved chef from Soul & Spice had acquired Le Papillon spread quickly, generating both excitement and skepticism. A wave of customers flocked to see the makeover, while others feared the loss of Le Papillon's high-end flair. Tanya stood her ground. She wouldn't strip away the fine dining sophistication, only enrich it with inclusivity and innovation. She replaced stiff dress codes with more relaxed guidelines, though staff still wore crisp uniforms. Meanwhile, she began a quiet search for the maitre d' who had once turned her away, not out of vengeance, but for a chance at closure. The reopening night arrived, culminating in a grand gala. Under glittering chandeliers, Tanya wore a sleek black gown, greeting guests with genuine warmth. Elegant couples, local celebrities, and dedicated Soul & Spice patrons mingled in an atmosphere of curiosity and celebration. Servers glided between tables, delivering escargots in Cajun butter and duck confit adorned with sweet potato mash. The fusion garnered gasps of delight. When Tanya took the stage to introduce her new vision, applause reverberated. She recounted a brief version of her journey, omitting explicit mention of her humiliating experience to keep the focus on the restaurant's promising future. Halfway through the evening, an older man lingered at the entrance, looking uncertain. One of the staff quietly informed Tanya. Recognizing him instantly, she felt her heart race. It was the same maitre d' from long ago, now visibly aged, wearing a rumpled suit. She approached, offering a polite hello. His eyes flickered with regret. "I heard you were the new owner," he admitted softly. I'm sorry for what happened. I can't change the past." Tanya inhaled, recalling the fury and shame from that day. "No," she replied gently, "you can't. But we can move forward." He nodded, tears glistening. Escorting him inside, she guided him to a table. He hesitated, almost fearing he'd be turned away. Instead, a friendly waiter brought him sparkling water. Tanya quietly returned to her hosting duties. Word spread among the staff that their boss had just welcomed the man once responsible for excluding her. Some employees were astounded. Others felt respect for Tanya's grace. The evening concluded with champagne toasts and swirling laughter. Critics praised the bold new menu. Meanwhile, the maitre d' slipped out discreetly. Tanya watched him vanish into the night, uncertain if she'd see him again, but oddly relieved they'd spoken. In the following months, Le Papillon soared under Tanya's leadership. Culinary magazines extolled her unique ability to merge Southern soul with French finesse. Bookings flooded in, sometimes weeks in advance. The once intimidating place became a beacon of inclusive fine dining, where families felt as welcome as corporate executives. Tanya introduced mentorship programs, recruiting aspiring chefs from underrepresented communities. She paid staff above market wages, knowing well the struggles of making ends meet. Observing the lively dining room, she often recalled that humiliating moment years ago. It felt like a distant memory, replaced by the hum of joyful conversation and clinking glasses. Inevitably, challenges arose. Traditionalists scoffed at her bold menu additions. Some even launched online rants accusing her of ruining a classic. Yet these detractors were outnumbered by enthusiastic patrons embracing fresh possibilities. Some nights, Tanya felt immense pressure. 2 thriving restaurants, media demands, and the weight of representing minority success in a historically exclusive industry. She inhaled deeply whenever self-doubt crept in, reflecting on her unyielding mission to ensure no patron ever felt unwelcome. That mission had carried her this far, fueling expansions, forging alliances. She also leaned on her now college-attending sons, whose pride in her achievements offered unwavering encouragement. An unexpected turning point arrived one evening when Tanya hosted a charity fundraiser for local youth programs. Glancing around the bustling dining room, she spotted the former maitre d' quietly volunteering alongside other staff. He carried trays, cleared tables, never grumbling once. After the event ended, he approached. "I know an apology can't undo my past actions," he said shakily, "but maybe I can do better now." Touched, Tanya nodded. She allowed him to stay on as a part-time greeter, albeit with watchful caution. Over time, she noticed a genuine shift in his demeanor, a man attempting to mend broken things. Local press soon covered the maitre d's story, painting it as a tale of redemption under Tanya's forgiving leadership. Public discourse erupted, with some praising her compassion, others accusing her of being too lenient. Tanya paid little mind. She understood that healing required empathy. Meanwhile, Le Papillon continued to thrive. Weekend bookings doubled, corporate events lined up, and philanthropic dinners became a staple. Tanya reveled in each success, but never lost sight of soul and spice, ensuring her original restaurant flourished. She spent time mentoring budding culinary students, reminding them that humility and resilience mattered more than critics' fleeting opinions. One afternoon, an invitation arrived from City Hall. The mayor wished to bestow an award recognizing Tanya's outstanding contributions to community development and cultural integration. On stage, she was lauded as a role model who exemplified perseverance. She spoke briefly, attributing her achievements to grit and gratitude. Looking at her supportive sons in the front row, Tanya felt her voice tremble. She mentioned how a single moment of discrimination had galvanized her, how she'd turned anger into ambition. The audience gave a standing ovation. Afterward, local youth approached her, brimming with questions about charting their own unconventional paths to success. Still, with 2 restaurants to run, Tanya's workload was relentless. She balanced recipe development, staff training, budgeting, and marketing. Sleep became a luxury. Thankfully, a robust management team carried day-to-day operations, sharing her inclusive ethos. She worked closely with each manager, ensuring no unconscious biases took root. Every staff member underwent diversity training, discussing the power of welcoming all customers equally. Indeed, Tanya insisted that fancy decor and elaborate menus shouldn't justify closed doors to anyone. While the broader world still grappled with discrimination, within Le Papillon's gilded walls, Tanya cultivated a microcosm of respect, echoing her soul and spice legacy. After several years, Le Papillon had never been more successful. Tourists flocked to dine at the storied spot, enticed by the press coverage of its radical transformation. Food critics from around the country visited, many awarding the restaurant top ratings. Tanya had realized her dream, and more. She often paused, reflecting on how tragedy had led her to triumph, a single mother forging an empire through resilience. And while she relished accolades, her truest satisfaction emerged from seeing families of every color enjoy a night out, children's laughter mingling with elegant piano music. Every table told a story of progress. On a memorable afternoon, Tanya spotted an elderly couple seated near the windows, happily sampling a sampler platter. The woman beckoned Tanya over, tears glistening. "My husband and I haven't felt comfortable in places like this for years," she confessed. "But your restaurant changed our minds." Emotion welled in Tanya's throat. She knelt beside them, expressing gratitude. These quiet, personal victories mattered most. The staff, once just employees, became ambassadors of her vision, greeting each newcomer as if they were a treasured guest. True to her vow, no one was ever asked to leave unless they posed genuine harm. When Tanya's sons returned from college breaks, they marveled at Le Papillon's metamorphosis. One was studying hospitality management, the other pursued media studies. Both planned to help her expand the brand further or create philanthropic ventures. Tanya cherished these glimpses of a bright future. Occasionally, she recalled the abrupt no from that maitre d'. Now, it echoed across these opulent rooms as a testament to how drastically circumstances could shift. She lived proof that an open mind and steadfast resolve could birth something extraordinary. And in this transformation, she never forgot those who doubted her, nor those who offered unwavering support. At last, Tanya stood in Le Papillon's lavish foyer on the anniversary of her ownership. She recalled leading her sons out in shame years before. Today, classical music played softly. The aroma of fresh pastries filled the air, and a rainbow of patrons dined contentedly. In that reflective moment, tears formed. She had come full circle. The restaurant that once rejected her was now a fortress of acceptance under her command. In interviews, people asked her greatest triumph. She never mentioned her wealth, expansions, or 5-star reviews. Instead, she simply said, "I opened doors once closed to me and kept them open." Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring content. And be sure to share this video with your friends. Your support helps us bring you more incredible stories.